Hey guys, welcome to Nerdcraft. This is an early access demo that we got our hands on for Heart of the Forest. I thought you guys would like to see it. Today's been rough. So let's take a look at Heart of the Forest. Made in Unity. Huh. Prologue, the Premonition. Alright. Cool. This game is about rage and how it helps us do things that need to be done, as well as things that we later regret. Sometimes both. How do you feel about that? I prefer to think before I act. So you're the observant and cunning type. That's okay. There's no right path here, just your decisions and their consequences. Let's just follow the path and see where it takes us. The woods are full of stars. They flicker, come closer, run away. They want me to chase them. Play, hide and seek. I'll observe. I watch as they dance around the tree trunks, float up on gusts of wind that shiver through the branches, disappear among the leaves. There are words in their dance, but I don't understand them. Not yet. Then they bunch up and fly towards me like an arrow, rushing down. They're soon upon me, but just before the spear of light pierces my breast, they disappear and the dark of night returns. Lo. In the darkness, the spirits keeping the forest alive whisper about the enemy. I begin to move, unnoticed, one with the night. And then I wake up. Confused, I opened my eyes. The forest around me is thick, dark, and reeks of decay, to such an extent that it's hard to breathe. I know the forest. I know this place. I've been dreaming about this forest since I was a child. The tree trunks wrapped tightly in the dark leaved ivy are covered in ripples of lichen where the vines haven't taken hold. The thorny, lifeless branches at their base are overrun with nettles. The fungi radiate with ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark sponge-like mushrooms cling to the fallen tree. Something is wrong. I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. I look down and see my hands covered in a dark substance. I'm naked, a sticky, glistening film of liquid clinging to my skin. I can feel it on my face, in my hair. Blood. Nature is never quiet. The leaves rustle in the wind. Small creatures scuttle in the undergrowth. There is a whisper. I don't understand what it means, but the wind resonates in my head. Garu. Overcoming my touches wet hair, and watch as the head topples over. The face is contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open, as though the head were still struggling for air. I look at it and it starts to laugh, and then eyes open in the darkness. I can see there's shades of jet black against the darkness. They smell of fur and moss and bloody dirt. Massive creatures, some with horns, some with antlers. Their eyes burn like fiery windows into hell. I look at them and some. Let's try it. They tell me stories of their lost battles and dying hopes, and I say no. I tell them stories of the enemy and how they are so stupid, so clueless that we almost feel pity as we killed them. They listen and laugh. I laugh with them. In a moment of clarity, I understand what the forest wants from me. And then I wake up. Maria, wake up. I opened my eyes, my neck was stiff. I stretched lazily as I assessed where I was out of the corner of my eye. I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was sat on a bus. The sun streaming through the windows, making it hard to see. The girl next to me was touching my shoulder, disturbed. It's alright. It's alright, I squeezed her hand to comfort her. She looked at me concerned. You were laughing like a maniac. I blinked. The memory of the dream was still there, and the taste of blood in my mouth. I looked outside. Trees were pushing up against the narrow road. Their burrows tangled, their trunks carpeted with moss. It was the forest for my dreams. We're almost there, said the girl next to me. Her name was Anya. We'd met a couple of weeks earlier on the orientation day. She was from Norway, a tall, broad-shouldered, calm person who wore her long hair in braids. I managed to talk her into this crazy field trip across the land of my enemies. Anya reached into her backpack and took out 2 apples. I'm really happy we decided to come here, she said. Yeah, I said, offering up some of my cabanosa, dried meaty sausages that were much better than the original Polish ones back in the US. I was glad Anya decided to come with me. I had problems keeping friends around and really needed one. I did some searching, she said, from over her phone, and this place is amazing. The last primordial forest in Europe. This trip was my idea. Our summer language course was starting in a few weeks, and I'd managed to talk Anya into skipping the tours of the concentration camps and old churches and visit... Oh, good lord. I'm going to ask you to forgive me for this. Biolosia National Park with me. So far, it's beautiful, she said, her eyes smiling. But why are we here again? Why were we there? There being Biolosia, a small village in the northwest Poland, near the border with Belarus. It was famous for its national park, the very last European bison, and according to a quick web search, occasional tensions between far-right troublemakers and the local Belarusian community. The most honest answer would have been because I've been dreaming about the forest in Belarus since I can remember. But people didn't understand when I said things like that. I'm not gonna push the willpower. I'm looking for my roots. I kept it simple so I wouldn't freak her out. I knew my family was from there. None of my relatives spoke about it, though. There were a lot of strange things that weren't spoken about in my life. Strange dreams that plagued me. Half-forgotten tales about forests and wolves that I had heard before my mom took me and ran away and cut off all contact with my dad and his family. I waited for her to respond. I think it's great that you've come from such a magical place, she said. The last ancient forest in Europe, thousands of years old. I wasn't sure if I was fond of that magic, but it was hard to ignore. Anya joined you, and that was precisely why I needed to do something. Anything about that damn forest and my weird-ass family. My grandfather's stories, the secrets my mother running away. There was a mystery in my past. It was time I uncovered the truth about who I was. There was a mystery to uncover, an adventure to be had. I couldn't wait. Okay. Biolosia looked like an overexposed photo of a village with the contrast turned all the way up. It was a hot, sleepy day on a hot, sleepy street, and everything. The old trees, the yellowed grass, the weathered wooden houses. Fences seemed almost normal. Everything except the shadows. They were sharp, as though they were freshly printed with the darkest of inks. And they moved. For a second I could have sworn they'd moved, but then I realized it was just a black cat walking down the sidewalk. When it saw me, it stopped in its tracks. Do you think there are rabid cats? Because this one is acting weird. I mean, there are rabid squirrels. Why not cats? She shrugged, looking around. Didn't you say your friend would be waiting for us? But he wasn't there. And the cat was still staring at me. Let's go. Anya put her in her backpack. I'm tired and I really need to find a toilet. For a moment I was tempted to just get out of the sun and worry about my missing friend. Alright, we'll try it. I grabbed my backpack and started walking. I'll manage on my own, thanks for nothing, I muttered under my breath. Anya sighed with relief and followed me. Bed and breakfast. Biolosia had a few hotels and hostels, but the preferred form of accommodation was a bed and breakfast. That's where we stayed. I found one that was nice and clean and that had good reviews. We had a room on the second floor with a huge window and a great view of the forest. We dropped our stuff and freshened up a bit. Maybe we should have waited for your friend, Anya asked, concerned. I shrugged. I'll find him sooner or later. Before you go check out your character sheet, look for it in the upper right corner of the screen. You can find a load of information about Maya, her background, personality, and goals, and so on there. You can also check out your friends and who your enemies are. So she's a student. She's healthy. In here, yeah. I have to clean it out. The lay of the land. I had a clear goal in mind. My family was entangled with this town and the forest. I had to uncover my route. Anya went with you. It was dark in the woods. Dark, humid, and chilly. The leaves didn't let through a single drop of sunlight. Daniel looked at Anya and me over his shoulder. How do you like her? We met maybe 20 minutes earlier. Anya had Googled local guides and he was apparently the best person to go to if you wanted to see the forest. So I found him and now here we are. Daniel was a strange guy, slender but muscular. Not the CrossFit type, it was more of the kind of strength you get from working all day in the open. His skin was weather-beaten and bronzed by the sun, like tanned leather, and he moved in a very deliberate way, but his fingers were slim and delicate, and his eyes were the strangest shade of yellow-green. So how do you like her? I wasn't sure whom he meant. You mean the forest, I asked? Polish was a strange language that gave the most unexpected genders to objects and ideas. I mean, Puziska. He just around us. The word sounded like wind rustling in the leaves. Pushishka. Pushishka is the right word, not forest. Forests are like fields or orchards, cultivated, he spat as he said it. And Pushishka, she is older than even the concept of fields. He was using the word as though it was a name. I looked around with fresh eyes. I felt as though I'd entered an ancient tomb. Gigantic dead trunks were decomposing around me. Young plants and colorful mushrooms sprouting from them. The trees that still live stretched toward the sky like columns, holding up the vaulted canopy, which blocked out all but a few rays of sunlight. There was stillness, and there was movement, darkness and light. If spirits existed, that place would be swimming with them. There should be more places like this, I said earnestly, or more of this place. Yes, you're right, he said with a serious. You're a local. Maybe you've heard of my family, I asked. I'm not from here, but my family was, I continued. I think something secret connects me to this place. I dream about this forest a lot. Abruptly and turned to me, watching me for a while. His nostril flared as though he were tasting the air. His face broke into a smile. I think our families might have known each other many winters past. Pushishka still remembers. Come on. He started walking. I know exactly what you need to see. That piqued my interest. So I was right. There was something hidden in my family's past, and it seemed to have a lot to do with the forest. Every time you learn or do something significant that brings you closer to your goal, you regain willpower. With every step, I was getting closer to solving the mystery. We have to choose a path, he said. There's the old wolf den, or I could show you the Barrows first. Or a clearing that some people call the place of power. Let's go to the place of power. He started walking, but after a few steps he stopped abruptly like he'd remember something. Then he turned to me. Could you humor me, please? Sure. Yeah, man, sure. What do you need? He was on a dead tree trunk, smelled his fingers, and then reached into his pocket. He took out a small stone. I felt my fingers itch. The stone was valuable. I wasn't sure why I thought that, but there was something possessive about the way Daniel held on to it. How my approach his problems. They will accumulate and gradually reveal what kind of person she is, deep in her heart. I would like you to take this stone. He held out his hand open toward me and threw it in the direction and throw it. Humor him. Okay, I said, reaching for the stone. I took the stone and closed it. Be careful, whispered Anya. It was warm, and I could feel it pulsating. I closed my eyes and thought about the place of power, trying to imagine that place. I felt light and smelled hot air. My hair stood on end. I felt my hand rising on its own, and then throwing the stone as far as I could. When I opened my eyes, there was a path where the stone had fallen. I hadn't noticed it before. Okay. Daniel patted my back and said, let's go. Pushishka, sympathetic. He gave me a faint smile. Let's. I played it cool. He gave me a faint smile before he turned to head deeper into the forest. Buzzing in my ears. It started with the hairs on the back of my hands rising. The air around me seemed brighter, lighter than leaves, and the tree trunks turned yellow, and my skin started to prickle. I realized that I couldn't hear anything except for a low buzzing that was filling my ears. I couldn't think. Words appeared and disappeared in my head, faster than I could notice them. I had to do something. I took a step back to assess the situation. I looked around and noticed there was a clearing nearby with some kind of wooden construction in it. There was also a shadow, a silhouette of a person moving slowly, deliberately. The clearing was a plateau between huge boulders. There were double trunk trees between the rocks, and the angular wooden construction that stuck out of the ground like a sore thumb. There was a bike leaning on it, but more importantly, there was a man, and he was moving in the most beautiful, harmonious way I'd ever seen. I looked at him for a moment, at the way his muscles danced under his tan skin, trying to trace his movement, before every grand gesture, every stretch, every push. There was a micro-movement, an impulse from his core, but I could feel it was even deeper. The energy that had been filling me earlier took form. It was flowing in rhythm with his steps, and the flow of his hands. The words came out of my mouth, seemingly without my knowing. What did you do? He smiled. It's a bit complicated. He stretched his hand toward me. I'm Cornell, he said with a hard German accent. Shouldn't you be on the logging site? Daniel asked him after I introduced myself. I needed to center myself, he answered. The others are still there. Don't worry. Wait, logging here? I couldn't believe my ears. Yes, logging here. That's why I needed to calm down. This place is special, Daniel said. Some people call it a place of power, as I told you. And they have a good reason to. Look around you. So I looked. It was a clearing filled with light. I could see Cornell's traces, a beautiful pattern on the ground. But there was one more thing that caught my attention, more than anything else. Why the observation. This was supposed to be a forest untouched. Okay, hang on. Why the fuck is this here? I asked, pointing at the observation tower. I thought this was supposed to be a forest untouched by humans. People believe this was a place of worship thousands of years ago, hence the fruit trees, the stone circle, and now the tower. And indeed, there's a lot of energy in this place. You felt it, didn't you? Yeah, I felt it, I said, without enthusiasm. The Pushishka is wounded and in pain, and it calls out in rage to anyone who can hear it. Here, this call is louder. You can see the logging. His eyes darkened. His slaughter. Anya grasped quietly. Every priceless thing can be destroyed by greed. Logging is illegal, of course, but illegal is sometimes just a way of saying a bit more expensive, but still profitable, especially for huge corporations. The forest is hurt. The wound is getting bigger, as is its desperation. This is wrong, I heard myself say. There was no defiance in my voice, only cold certainty. This wasn't about anger, it was about what was right. Cornell regarded me for a moment with a faint smile. You have a connection with this force, don't you? You should come to the logging site and meet everyone. Absolutely. Hey, did any of you maybe have strange dreams about the forest before you got here? He looked at me, a bit of concern in his eyes, as I said, you seem to be connected with the forest and very sensitive to the things that are happening here. Pay attention to your dreams, especially tonight. This place is known to communicate in that way. He jumped suddenly and looked at the wooden tower and the bike I noticed earlier. The Schwaba is getting restless, he said, and as Daniel pointed out, I should be on the logging site setting up the protest. What is Schwaba? I asked, confused. Swallow. He named his bike Swallow, he explained. He loves it very much. Oh, I do. Nice meeting you, Maya. The moment he disappeared, the buzzing came back. It wasn't as strong as before, but it was there. All I wanted to do was get out of there. Okay, so we did that one. go to the Barrows. If you hear me pause occasionally, it's to take a drink. The trail soon disappeared. Sometimes we walked along a barely visible path made by some animals. Sometimes we followed a stream or a gulling. But for the most of our trek, we walked through the dense undergrowth. Daniel looked like he knew the way, but I kept second-guessing him. I looked at the moss growing on the trees, but it was growing everywhere. The sun was barely noticeable through the dense canopy, and it was on my left-hand side, which might have meant we were headed north. It's a pleasant walk except for the skulls in the imagery. It was a pleasant walk. There was always a path through the brambles. The ground was even and the branches stayed out of our way. I felt like the forest wanted us to find the way. Daniel was a mystery I decided to solve. It was the efficient and deliberate way Daniel moved, and I tried to guess his background. Why had he become a guide? Let's try and guess it. Are you military? There was something dangerous in the way he moved. Yes, I used to fight. He said nothing more. Drop it for now. When I watched him, I had the feeling there was something hidden in plain sight, a mystery. I decided to keep an eye on him. We continued in silence. We'd been walking for a while when I noticed that Daniel's steps had become slower. He was also looking around more often and hunched slightly. Are we there yet? I asked. He froze for a second as though he'd forgotten that I was there. They're tricky to find sometimes. Be quiet for a minute, please. That was when I felt it. Ash in my mouth. The smell of smoke and wet spoil. And a pull. I knew where to go. I think I know where to go, I said, surprised. He tilted his head back. Oh, okay. Let's check it out. I pointed to the barely visible path to my left, under a dying tree. He followed me, and I followed my feet, knowing exactly where they should go. Under the crooked tree, past the dead tree trunk, and the sponge-like mushrooms. Across the patch of wet, dark green moss, all the way to the place that didn't look much different than other parts of the forest, until you noticed the elevations. There was something about the flattened hills that drew my full attention. A memory stirred in my mind. No, it wasn't a memory. It was a feeling anchored in my chest, akin to the taste of ash in my mouth and the smell of smoke. Longing, sadness, resignation. A sense of sacredness. It filled me with a calm excitement, and when I closed my eyes, I saw a fire burning in the darkness. The village was long gone, its houses burned to the ground, its people slaughtered, but the spirits were still there. They'd accumulated over time, some in ancient Roman armor, some in rags, some in animal skins, some in uniforms from the World Wars, some in modern camo. Are we dead? Where are we? They asked me with a frantic whisper. But they were real, just echoes of the past. The spirits in the trees were real. When I opened my eyes, Daniel was watching me. You were somewhere else, he said. You said you had family here? Be honest with him. I heard that my father's family came from here. I nodded. I don't know much about them. He sighed. I don't think you should be here. Small error here, he said, tersely. You're not ready. Why? What do you know? I wasn't letting you go. About you, not much. But I know the Pushka. The past is close here. His eyes worried as he looked at me. And if the Pushka calls to you, it's wise to listen. But it's not wise to get lost in the voices. Come. Was this what my family did here? Why had Daniel asked me about... Was the vision showing me what my ancestors had done? Either way... You're gonna have to accept it. I smiled. The bigger picture was finally starting to come to light. Magic was in my blood. I don't know if that was the right answer. Last place. The Wolves' Den. The first thing I noticed when we stopped was a pine tree. I remember it. Small, twisted, and crooked. Growing on the side of the hill. Fighting for light and balance. Robbed of level ground, it had to make do, adapt. Months before that, when I decided to come to Poland, I dreamed of that tree. I was sure of it, just like when I was sure that under the roots I'd find a burrow, a few feet away, and another one like another one, like two dark eyes staring at me as I approached. Daniel passed me and approached the tree. He pressed his cheek against the trunk. "Hello," he said quietly. Don't say anything. I looked around, but we were the only people there, so I remained silent. A sudden gust of wind threw a cloud of dust in my face and into my eyes. "This is the den," Daniel announced. "It's abandoned, of course, but still worth seeing." "What happened?" I asked. "Humans happened," Daniel sighed. He sat under the tree, leaning his back against it. "It was a hot spring morning when they found this den. No one knows who the men were, even though it was only one human generation ago. There were 6 cubs here under the roots of this tree." He stopped stuttering and seemed to enjoy telling the story. I enjoyed listening. And I enjoyed listening to it. There was something calming in his voice and the way he talked. His slow gesture and wistful eyes made me feel as though I was with the cubs on that hot spring morning. "I don't think they wanted to hurt the wolves," he continued. "They probably thought they'd been abandoned. This is why they took the cubs with them. Humans have an instinct that makes you try to befriend everything, especially if it's dangerous." Yeah. We're like that, something like that, aren't we? I smiled. "I'm not saying it always works out, but the intention is good, and I believe the men who kidnapped the wolves wanted to do something kind," he continued. "Anyway, they took them. Out of the 6, 2 lived to see the cold summer that year. The wolf mother used to come to the farm they were at and howl. People went gray if they heard her. And suddenly I heard that howl. I knew exactly how it sounded. I felt despair and longing gnawing at my soul. I remembered how the cubs reacted. When she came, we never had answered, young as we understood. There was no going back. Survival was the law, and despair was a weakness. "Maya, are you okay?" Anya said, as putting a hand on my shoulder. "You're such a good storyteller," I said, trying to brush it off. For a moment there, I felt like I was one of them. "Thank you," Daniel sighed, looking at the tree in the burrow. "The cubs that survived were sold to some people in Honjokawa, or I probably messed that up. But after a while, both of them ended up back in Bielorussia with the scientists. They have a station in National Park. One of the wolves, Kazan, was a celebrity of sorts. If you saw any wolf photos from here, they were probably of Kazan." In the end, it's impressive that Kazan survived, I decided. He was smart to befriend people. Survival is always good, he agreed. There was a slight gust of wind and the trees creaked. I remembered that sound from my dreams as well. What happened later, I felt like I knew Daniel well enough to ask that. Is Kazan still alive? He lived for 8 years in the park. Daniel looked at me with his yellow eyes until they let another male wolf into his pen. I held my breath. They fought over the she-wolf and Kazan lost. I've read about that. She sounded upset. They didn't notice he was wounded. It took him 3 days to die. Daniel shrugged. He lived a long life and died fighting. It was good. He looked at the Barrows for a long time. This place is my friend, so I try to keep it important and respected. I think it's my mission, you know? I think I understand. Every family had a story worth remembering. Daniel looked at the tree one last time. Goodbye, he said. And we left. The forest was alive and just visually, but not alarmed by our presence. The B&B was quaint. When we got back, we were both drained. We were soon curled up in our beds. What a day, Anya yawned. So what do you think? I made a quick mental inventory of everything that happened today. I was moved by the story of the wolves. And the captivity. The story stayed with me, you know. Yeah, that was weird. Soon we were both asleep. Even though I was tired, sleep didn't come quickly. Anxiety was spreading its cold, writhing roots deep in my chest and stomach. I lay there for some time, looking at the silver rectangle painted on the wall by the half moon. I drifted off. And 2 black holes underneath a crooked tree stared into the night, quiet, vigilant. I tremble. Something is coming. It's huge and monstrous. I am a seed. I realize I'm a seed. I float on the air. When I land in the wet soil, die and sprout, my roots blow up the earth. I feel a pull, and I surrender to it. I float towards a clearing. There are piles of fresh corpses of people who died too young, skinned and mutilated. Their loved ones stand around them, grieving, unable to do anything, waiting, and suddenly they are just trees and tree trunks. I dance among the fallen trees. There is no time to weep. We must laugh and live, and be ready to strike. There is a stench in the air like meat rotting in acid, but something worse. I see the monstrous army. Their mandibles are whirling. Chainsaws. Their long metal arms, wrapped with black pipes that look like glistening pistons. Their smell is vile. They wait, unmoving. I try to breathe through my mouth as I run towards the machine. I hit and kick them blindly, screaming at the top of my lungs. There between the stars, 2 shaped circles. The awful rot. Okay, wait. There between the stars, 2 shapes circle each other on an old sad wolf with gray hair and a white weasel. They keep their eyes on one another, and they continue their dance, suspicious but not hostile. We need to fight the enemy, the awful rotting stench, I know that much. But how do we do that when we don't trust each other? They stop and look at me at the clearing. I can spend 1 willpower. I spill my blood and bless them with words that I do not recognize, but that I understand. They come down to me. We've been waiting for you for a long time. I wake up. Okay, guys, that's it. This has been the Heart of the Forest. It is very interesting. I look forward to playing more of it when it comes out. But, yeah. This is Nerdcraft signing off. I hope you guys enjoyed the playthrough. I'm gonna bet you money that it sent the video. Hmm.